Morning. Good, you doing all right? Other than this stupid weather. Somebody tears us.
Yeah, it's, and then you got the AC on and there's your.
How are you, brother?
Excellent, how are you?
Alright, so that's my computer. I thought I looked at it. Well, you want me to do it?
No, yeah.
Okay, that'll be this.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
So, Joel's gonna come in. Are you just gonna say where you are?
Good to see you back.
Yes. You get your coffee today?
Huh?
Did you get your
No, I didn't.
Devin, how are you, sir?
Your hair
Is it
Bob?
thick or is it
Oh,
Children.
I will take
Your
over.
children.
I will take the white over what's going on over here. Some is better than none.
Wow, I can hear you.
I didn't find it. Did you find the dog the other day?
Bald is beautiful.
Yeah, yes. The second I got home from here the other day, the bird passed on my next door is here. Oh, I know. Hear me? Out there, okay, yeah, that dumb dog jumped out of his car.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah. Was it hurt? No, it was totally fine, but I mean, we were chasing it for a day and a half.
Wow.
And then it finally walked in the door after one of the nurses or techs at the clinic. Yes. So I went up and took pictures to put it out there. It's not a very pleasant little dog. I'm surprised, I mean, he ran across 71 like 4 times. Oh my God. At 5 o'clock shot.
That's a very lucky dog.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my bet too.
No, he's just gonna run. He's gonna go tell me this later.
Bernard, are we ready?
I'll be when you're ready, Devin.
Good morning, y'all. So today I think we had planned to go through both sides, to go through some of the articles that we think will have minor to no changes on. And I'm ready to start on the city side if y'all are ready, and then we can go through and I think the other issue was signing the ground rules, and then what was the last thing? Oh, the merged document discussion you wanted to have. I don't know how much time that'll take in the joint session. All right, so you can go ahead. So I'll walk through some of these. So keep in mind, we do have the word minor highlighted as well. So these aren't necessarily just no change, but it's honestly, it's our good faith belief of what we think will be a minor change on both sides. Now, of course, something minor to us, maybe y'all think is major and vice versa, but this is our good faith belief that these will be minor issues for both of us. The preamble, the definitions, obviously we may add some definitions, but we don't see any changes to it right now. recognition, management rights, non-discrimination, union dues, check off. And then we skip down to Article 11, because we're guessing you guys are gonna want changes to wages, overtime, special leave, holiday vacation. I mean, this is, so let's go down to 11. I don't think we'll have very any major changes at all to ABL, to association communication. The reason I didn't highlight hiring is because we're going through the Kroll report to see if there are changes recommended in there necessitate a contract change. A lot of the things they talked about in there in my first reading of it were things that APD does administratively, like the credit checks and things like that, not contract issues. So, but until I go through that in a little bit more detail, I didn't want to highlight it here just in case. Go ahead, Sarah, go down. Drug testing. Obviously, we'll agree to a term of agreement. Notices, entire agreement, savings clause, and consolidation. At some point, when our very last PSM officer retires from APD or leaves APD, we can eliminate Article 25, but I think we still have 40-something officers from PSM, so I think it just makes it easier and simpler just to keep that provision in there. On Article 20, I will say that we got a note from our assistant city attorney who represents the city in grievances. I think he has some changes he'd like to see in 20, but frankly, I haven't had time to go in depth into discussions with them. So those changes very well may be minor, but until I talk to him, I didn't want to highlight it here until I figure out if those changes are minor or major. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think there's very much that we're going to disagree on the grievance procedure. So that's what we have. I'm ready to hear what y'all have.
Well, I don't have it in a fancy PowerPoint. Old school, I just actually wrote it with a pencil. I think it's very similar. Some of the things, and I have a little chart that, of course, I got ready, and then this morning everybody reminded me of this or that, so it changed. So, of course, we don't think, the only thing in the preamble, it does have a term of the contract in it. Whatever the bottom is, it'll fit the top. So, definitions, generally we just leave those to the end to see if there's any new words. I always do this when I start, and I'll reflect this when I put together a draft. One, I'd like to make the definitions alphabetical. It seemed like they were just kind of, and this is minor, we're talking about minor things. So, and the other is, we have business day defined. I usually go through the whole contract looking at those, but the contract only uses the word working one time. So I'd like to, and I'll do that when I send you out. I'll take that out and make it business. And then any other day of which it needs to be defined, then we use the word calendar. I know there's an assumption that if it doesn't say it, it means calendar. Well, we don't need any assumptions. So I do this each time and kind of look at it. And so I'll mark those from my end, and then you can look at it. But that in definition, that's about it. Recognition, of course, nothing. There may be a couple of minor things, or at least one issue which we want to have maybe some of these may just be conversations. One section in management rights, just a comment. And we have been updating non-discrimination to pick up things of which are today were not in the old original, sex, creed, color, national origin. So we have sexual orientation in there, or maybe sexual identity. There's a few things that we just need to make sure they're clearly stated, and we'll put that out. Of course, in communication on Article 12, you just probably need to take out pagers. That's about it. We've been doing that in some where we had, we didn't make any recognition of electronic communication that we did in the past. So we'll probably just get rid of pagers. That's about it today. We're not, on the grievance system, we have a couple of questions that may be more clarity about the step, and that may be what the city attorney's office, and those are fine, because we have to look at it and make sure it's functioning for both sides. And we have a couple of questions because the steps require one side to respond or not, and if they don't respond, then it's either over or it moves to the next step. We just need some clarity of when is that required. And I'm not looking at it, but say the city, the chief has 10 days to respond. The chief doesn't respond in 10 days. At what point then is the union required to go to the next step, which is fine. But so there's a couple of things mechanically we'll probably talk about. There's one issue we'll probably bring you some language in the consolidation. We do agree with you that has to remain as long as we have officers who came from airport parks and marshals. Just about some conflicting language between what's in there and what's in another section, and we'll get that in order for the next week. Well, I think that, and we agree, there's no notices, entire agreement, savings costs, preemption, all of those concern, and of course, term agreement, we will mutually come to some understanding on the length of the contract. And we can talk about that next time we meet about what the city thinks that how long they want to see this agreement last. So, anything else, Melanie?
No, I think when we go through, I mean, the definitions and stuff like that, we'll be able to let y'all know. I mean, they're just little minor changes. So. Nothing.
I'll get this cleaned up. It'd be my intent for the next meeting to bring some language on a bunch of small things that we don't think will be controversial, or at least there'll be a few where I just want to have a conversation with you, and we may not need to change it at all, just an understanding. So hopefully we'll have a number of those and some more non-economic issues put together. I just haven't enough clarity yet with the team, but we'll have proposals ready. Hopefully we can get no changes off the table and minor deals off the table and get those cleared out so we can deal with the major issues.
Yeah, you didn't have a fancy thing to put up on the screen, but you did go through a little bit more detail than we did. I don't think there's anything you said that we disagree with. For example, on the non-discrimination, we wanted updated too, but we think that it's not going to be controversial. So I think when we went through ours, it's just things that we think are relatively minor that we hope at least that y'all agree are minor and that we can just kind of get out of the way and then move on to some of the bigger issues. But all right. Also, before I forget, Ron, when we meet in March, the March 9th, can y'all have some dates, and we will too, about availability in April? Because I think after the 9th, we meet maybe 2 more times. Yeah. Yeah. The 23rd and 30th. So, if we can get some dates set with y'all for April, then we'll have that clarity when Bob and I start figuring out dates for fire. So, all right. Let's see. Sarah, you want to talk about the merge document? Or Ron, do you want to talk about it at all?
Well, let me just tell you what I do, and then Sarah and I have worked together before. I create, and of course, it's our document, so you will create your own document or mark it, but I take and get the contract into a Word document, and then I mark using legislative drafting, underline for new, strikeouts for old, and initially, I usually use blue for the association and red for the city. And later on, we'll make that into what's called a red line copy, which allows us then to read it for the purposes of making sure all the stuff is done. But initially, I can use green, some people do, but either way, in other places where we might have two conflicting proposals, I'll pull those out and we'll just say, section 9B, this is what the city wants, and this is what's so it just comes so it jumps out at you and you don't miss little things. And then I'll work with Sarah, whoever's working and do the document. We'll go back and forth. And then when you get ready to propose things, if I haven't advanced, I'll merge them in. So at the end of each meeting, we'll put all those together to make sure that everybody knows where everyone else is at. And I have been doing lately, I'll create what's called just a status report prior to a meeting that says, here's what's unresolved. This is what's on the table. It won't go into detail. It's just kind of the index for the larger. If you go to San Antonio website and look at bargaining, you'll see my red lines in there. The city chose not to do it, but then they posted all my red lines. So it's okay, but you can go in and see what each meeting, what was proposed, what's still left. So at the end, you just have a few things left and things are moved over. So I'll do that, and then we'll just work together so that we know where we are on each issue, or if that issue is done, then, of course, for those not familiar with the process, even if it doesn't have to change, even if we reach a tentative agreement, it's never off the table until ink hits the paper, because things in the course of the discussion, you could come up and say, well, if we do that, then we better go over and fix this. And I have 2 or 3 that we TA'd in San Antonio that later we had to go back and fix because of other things we did. So once everybody kind of gets into it, the team or the public that's watching can at least see what the parties are discussing.
Well, and it's nice, because what we do is we put the document up here so that you can see,
Yes.
The association's position is, the sky's blue, and that'll be written in blue.
Yeah.
And in red, it'll say the city's position, which would be the sky is green. So that the community can see exactly who's saying what at any given time, and what we're agreeing on, what we're not agreeing on, or what's being discussed that day. They can see the actual language as we do. So
Yes,
it's really
yes.
fantastic.
And like I said, in San Antonio where I'm just finishing, that's all posted, so you can look at the merge draft, or you could just look at the summary, depending on, and you could say, well, where are the parties? What have they agreed to? We post the TAs, and then, so anyone can track it who has nothing else to do in their day, which to go over and read all that, but it's there for public and for the members to look at. So we'll do that, and it actually, this is a good way, once we get rolling, is to be able to pull it up for a large group. When you're just reading, some people think but they can look up there and you can see this is what we're talking about. So yeah, I like it. I like the setup. I think this will work well.
I think the only other thing is the ground rules. I don't know if we printed a copy of it.
I did not print a copy. Ron, do you have a copy of that printed already, or do I need to get that? I can check it.
We probably got the one here. If you, Well, I punched holes in my, put it in my notebook, but yeah, we've got a clean copy here. Okay, we'll get it signed, and if y'all sign one, then we'll both have it.
When's your next date in San Antonio?
Friday.
Friday, what was I want to come on this? If the city wants to settle, we'll settle Friday. We have one more date after that, but, we're down to about 2 things, so if A falls in place, it'll go. If not, it may go another meeting, but we are done. On the ground rules, and we talked about this a little bit, we didn't fill it in, and this is in process number 7. We said parties have, we left blank between a cutoff for new issues to be placed on the table, and each party will make initial proposal on all topics by X date, and then we have a date in which to do economics. Do you want to just leave that blank?
I actually do have a copy of the agreement with those filled in, which is one that I emailed to you the last time we met, so she may not have had the same finalized copy after I got those.
What,
Why don't I read that to everyone? I had, what I used what you had suggested, which was March 30th for the first day, March 23rd for the second date. And then I kind of switched up the language to just use, they can just say TBD on the third line there.
I'm sorry, what was the third one?
TBD.
Okay, yeah.
And what we had discussed is that, basically, once authority of the city is granted, the city will basically dictate what that date is, because it can't be done until it's done.
Okay, just for our team, is generally customary that we have a date of which, unless you have a right to do whatever you need to do, but the parties try not to present new issues after a certain date. Otherwise, it'll just go on forever. And then we have a date, which that would be March the 30th meeting, but the 23rd, we'll try to have at least all of our proposals introduced. We may not have language, we'll say this is what we want to talk about. So both sides have an idea of what we're going to produce. And it's tougher on making economic deals because the city has to prepare a budget and adopt that, and that process starts a little later in the year, by the summer. So once the city has a clearer picture of what funds are available, then we'll get into a discussion about the economic side of the agreement. So I'm okay with that, Sarah, if you want to do that. And you can print one out here.
Yeah.
If
I
you,
you got the other, yes, I can.
yeah, if you'll print 2 copies, I'll sign them and you can sign them.
Right, and the other
Or
blank,
Devin, yeah.
the other blank in 12, you had suggested that be the March 2023 date as well, which we were doing.
Okay, that'd be March,
March 1, 2023.
when does the contract expire? 31?
March 30th,
30th?
I think, or March 31st.
Whatever the last day of the evergreen,
March 31, 2023.
that'll be fine. Hope we don't go that long.
Okay, so let us print that. We'll walk it over to you guys with our signatures, and then y'all can sign it, and we'll look at seeing if we can do something similar to y'all, what y'all did in San Antonio. We'll take a look, see how you guys, see what the city's posted up in San Antonio and see if we can copy this anything here. All right. I think that's
All right,
for us.
well, we're gonna go back and work and use some team time while we're here.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, but yeah, for the public, I guess, who's watching, we're not gonna have any more joint sessions today, so that's about it. All right, thank you
All
guys.
right,